evening and welcome to our final release it program before election. In fact, next Thursday around this time, I think some people might be celebrating while others might be a little sad, because in an election you can only have one winner. Second place does not count in an election. You get to be the opposition, but definitely second doesn't count. As someone once said, when we vote to elect a government, not an opposition. So good evening, folks. We welcome you once again. Dr. Pancho is with me, as he has been for the past couple of programs. And this evening, we will be joined by a very special guest, none other than the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell. So he will be joining us, not for the entire program, but of course we understand the busy schedule now. Campaign is at its height, and so we know that the PM has his work to do. So he'll be joining us in a few minutes, and we'll have the opportunity to chat with him, ask him a couple of questions, and of course try to get from him his feeling on how this may all play out, whether he will return to government or whether we may have a new government. You just never know. Only the people can decide that. So, Dr. Pancho, good evening and welcome again.
Well, welcome, Godfrey, and welcome. Thank you for having me again on this program. This is our fourth session together.
Yes,
and this is our final session before next Thursday. Next Thursday, we are going to be here again. This time, analyzing and maybe just practically presenting the reports from the electoral, the totals, and declaring winners, and we'll be just.
If you declare winners, what do you do with the people who did not win?
You just do not call their name on that night.
No, that's not nice, because in an election you can have some very, very interesting results.
Yes,
I recall in 2003, Dr. Pancho, the Carriacou seat, there was a difference of 6 votes that could have determined which way the election went. So it can be very, very interesting in our situation. First past the post, the party with the most votes, they get to, or the most seats then get to win the election, because actually in terms of actual votes, a party can get the most votes and not get the most seats in parliament.
Absolutely.
Yes. So it's very interesting. The campaign is now, I would say, at its highest point. We have just a few more days to go, and I guess on the weekend we may possibly see the final rallies. We've seen a number of them. We've had youth rallies, and some. And these rallies, Dr. Pancho, they've really pulled out supporters. What's your thought?
Absolutely. Both rallies had a tremendous amount of people. The rally in Guave, the Friday there was the youth rally in Plains, and that was a massive event. And then on Sunday we had the new National Party on the Pearls Airstrip, and the National Democratic Congress did go to Cuthbert Peters Park, and both rallies reports, the pictures are showing a vast number of people. This election, Godfrey, is energized by a lot of things, and some of which we are going to talk about tonight. And it's interesting. I like that. Last time we had over 20,000 people who were registered, did not for vote. One reason or the other cast the ballot. This time I'm hoping that there's going to be maybe a 85 to 87% in voter turnout. And if that happens, we are in for a very, very interesting countdown next Thursday.
Yes, indeed. Pancho, you talk about energized, and I must give the National Democratic Congress some credit. We know they had some problems up to recently, up to as recent as just before the end of the year. They were almost struggling to put their leadership in place, and eventually they got that that done, and almost immediately the party got new energy. The supporters, have been re-energized, and they've been there. They've become very visible.
Yeah.
So much so that there are people who believe they do have a chance of coming out victorious. What do you think?
Well, I tell you this. I am going to do this. I did a post. It was not a figurative person. Yesterday, on my way to St. George's, I gave a Rhonda, a real person, right? A real person, St. David's. I picked her up in Malmont, and she was going close to the police station there. And we got into talking, and and she is going to be a worker at the poll and all of that. And then I, just before she alighted from my vehicle, I politely asked her, "What are your predictions?" And she said, NDC 9, boldly. And I am saying that's a very, very bold statement, a very interesting statement. And maybe just time will tell, Godfrey.
No, definitely. Yeah. Time will tell. In fact, I've heard people say NDC 10. On the other hand, you're hearing that the NNP can get a clean sweep again.
Yeah.
You're hearing that the NNP can probably win 12. And there's a lot of predictions. Excuse me. My main concern, though, with all of these predictions, how have people been able to determine the numbers or the figures that they are calling? Have they looked at the data? Have they been on the ground? Have they been talking to people?
Yeah.
Yes, the house is done. You meet people, you talk to them, you rally your supporters, you rally your base, but that still does not give you an indication as to the movement of people, because this is what helps to change governments. In this present situation, the NNP, they're starting ahead. They got 15 seats in parliament in the last election. And, the votes, there's quite a bit of votes that the NDC will need to recoup if they need to win the election. And I'd like us to go through some of them, because I think it is very important, that these figures, are looked at. We saw from 2013, there were some NDC candidates that were able to narrow the margin from the 2013 election, and so on. So it is a case that will turn out very interesting. For example, let's start in St. Andrews Northeast, where we are from. We're both from.
Yeah.
The NNP won that seat by some 626 votes. Now the question is, and of course, the NNP candidate is still there. They have not changed their candidate, Miss Kate Lewis Peters. And the NDC, they now have a new candidate, Mrs. Tessa Sincere. Now, the NDC in Northeast, they would have to first get an additional 626 votes and one more to win that seat.
Yes.
The question is, have they been able to do that? Now, it was a short period, 3 months after selecting a leader. They had to get things in place, do the work. They worked very quickly.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, 626 votes is a lot of votes to pull together.
Yeah.
Especially when you are coming up against a candidate, of course, who's part of the government and has the advantage of being able to get things done because you have resources. So you can get work done in your constituency. You're in a better position to assist the people who need assistance. So what do you think? You're probably in Northeast more than me.
Yes, that's my residence. I reside in St. Andrews Northeast, and it's a very interesting two really great candidates, Godfrey. Two young women, educated young women, well spoken, articulate. Really, I think they both have the interests of the people of St. Andrews Northeast at heart. Kate does have the advantage, and Tessa does have to make up close to 700 votes before she could. But then, you see, I think the great equalizer will be the ability to influence the new registrants. Because remember, there are several people, and it could be maybe 400 or 500 of new voters from the constituency. So who can influence those 400 or 500 voters? Because from last election cycle to this one, there's an increase of just about 9,500 votes. Okay, so these are new people who are registering. So it will be really, really interesting. I look forward to the contest. I think every constituency, Godfrey, does present a very interesting look. You know, some people are predicting it's going to be a really great fight between Lacrette and Dr. Mitchell. and Dr. Mitchell, we're going to have him on tonight. And I want to get a feel and look into his face and ask him, you know, how confident is he?
Well, that is very interesting. When you consider that the Dr. Mitchell has won that seat since what, 1984, never lost it.
Yeah.
And what is also significant about that, the margin of victory is significant. Most times he has won that seat by over 2,000 votes.
Yeah.
Now that is a lot of votes. In many cases, many other constituencies, candidates don't even get that number of votes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would have to say I don't agree it's going to be a huge fight in that constituency. You know.
Well,
I think it's one of the show seats that the NNP is starting with. Also, the St. Mark seat never been lost in recent times by the NNP.
Yeah.
In the last election, the candidate there, Mrs. Clarice Modisco, when she won by 1,029 votes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of votes. In recent times, Mrs. Emlyn Pear of the NNP has also done very, very well. In the last election, her margin of victory was 1,158 votes.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of votes to recover from the NDC.
Yes.
And whether they've been able to do that, you know, within that short period of time, I am not sure. You know, and as you go on to look at the other seats, for example, the tongue of St. George, the difference was what, 826. Now, Peter David represents the NNP there. Of course, in previous elections, he also won that seat on twice on an NDC ticket.
Yeah.
So I would think that he has some personal votes in that constituency that he can definitely, you know, hold on to. I don't know whether or not Ms. Joseph can recoup that vote. Yeah. But the thing about it is, the NDC, they have won the election before. Yeah. So you cannot rule them out. And history has shown that whenever new blood is injected into the party, they have shown to do very well. Yeah. As in 2003 and 2008, they didn't win in 2003, but a mere 1,100 votes separated them from the NNP. Yeah. In 2008, they won. 1,800 votes separated them. So you know, it is going to be interesting, and I think the NDC does have their work cut out for them. Yeah. Of course, the NNP has to do the work because you cannot take anything for granted. Yes. You know, and there are issues. People have raised issues. We've heard the cry for change, whether it is a cry from the general populace that I guess will be determined on June 23rd.
Yes, yes, definitely so.
So, you know, and so there are about 8 seats, Dr. Pancho, that I think the NNP probably feels very comfortable in. St. Andrews Northeast, we mentioned first. Yeah. St. George Southeast, that's where the deputy political leader. Yeah. Okay. Now also, there's something very interesting about these seats. Some of these seats have been won by NDC before in the past. You know, so it's not a case where one can say, you know, NDC cannot win them because they've won them before. But when you consider the numbers
Right.
Bowen, he won by what, some 673 votes.
Yeah.
You know, so we have some numbers that you know needs to be looked at, and I trust that the NDC candidates are doing their work. I'm sure they're confident because, of course, they have been re-energized. You know, you have to give them that. But you know, as we both agree, you know, it's going to be very interesting. What's your thought on this St. John seat?
Well,
we have a very young person.
Yes, a very likable, very likable and well-spoken young lady. And she's coming up against the incumbent, Dabrio. And Alvin won that seat last time by 760 odd votes. So that's a great gap for which Ms. James must make up now. So I think the 8 seats that you think are very comfortable in the hands of the NNP going into this election. I sort of agree with you. I think it's going to take a lot of making up for the candidates to make up. However, it is not impossible because a few of those seats, I mean the St. John seat, have been won already by an NDC and another candidate, okay?
That's right.
Edzil won that, right? The tongue of St. George, St. Mark's, and of course, St. George's Northwest are the seats that have always seemed to be an NNP stronghold.
Yes, yes, indeed. But remember, St. Andrews Southeast, in recent times have, you know, I mean, I recall, was it 2008, Patrick Simmons won that seat for the NDC. In 2013, of course, given that the NDC had all their problems, but he faced a massive defeat there. And in 2018, again, the NNP candidate won that seat.
Since then, Ms. Pierre has really gone ahead.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And there's also something that we need to look at, Dr. Pancho, the history of some of these seats.
Yeah.
For example, Southeast has been a predominantly GOLP seat, the GOP background.
Yeah.
What we do know is that the NNP, they were able to capture a large percentage of the GOLP votes. And of course, we all know the GOLP had, you know, was a dominant party many years ago with Sir Eric Gary.
Yeah.
So the history of these seats is important to look at in, you know, in making these analyses of the election. You know, so I want us to go back again and have a look at some of the other seats. So we believe, based on the data, St. Andrews Northeast, St. George Southeast, St. John. We did not speak about St. George South. A very interesting seat.
Very interesting.
Now, that seat was won by the NDC on numerous occasions.
Yes.
Finchley St. Louis won that seat.
Yeah, Glennis Roberts
Roberts won that seat on 2 occasions. So it is not a foreign seat to the NDC.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting now. The South, they represented by Andy Williams, and of course Nolan Cox is the NNP representative. Both candidates seem to be doing very well. How do you think that seat may go, considering the popularity of both candidates?
Yeah, it was a very interesting battle. I think for me, it was one of the seats that I didn't call in the 2018 elections, because I thought Ray was a good spokesman for the NDC, but in the end, Nicholas Steele edged him out. So I'm thinking this time around, with 2 vibrant young people, Cox and Andy, it's going to go down to the wire.
Yes, I think so. But let me say this: we also have to look at the numbers again.
Yeah.
And in the South, the margin of victory for the NNP was even bigger than, let's say, for example, St. John and St. George Southeast and St. Andrews Northeast. We had a difference of 857 votes separating NDC from the NNP. Whether or not the NDC candidate can cover these votes, that's something to look at.
Yeah.
Now, we also have to remember that Nolan Cox is also part of the government, a senator.
Yeah.
A very important ministry. Works. Yeah. That's a ministry that can really help a candidate.
Yes.
So it's interesting. To see how this one will go.
Yeah.
When you listen to both parties seem to be extremely confident that the candidates will win that seat.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to see how this one is going to play out. We spoke of St. Mark, and we also spoke of St. Andrews Southeast. Now there are some other seats where the margin of victory was not as large.
Yeah.
For example, St. Patrick's East, the margin there was 382 votes in favor of the NNP. In St. Patrick's West, it was 448. There's also St. Andrews Southwest, which was 449, and St. Andrews Northwest, 496 votes.
Yeah.
Now, not as big as the other constituencies, but nevertheless, these are numbers that the NDC will have to get.
Yeah. Yes.
And the question remains: are they able to get it between now? If they haven't yet, are they able to recoup these votes between now and the June 23rd?
That is going to be the great question. The great question will be, can they make up that deficit from the last election and sort of energize more people to vote for them? And also, Godfrey, a very important piece I think we must never overlook is the disenfranchised and the disgruntled voter from the NNP that may swing to the NDC, and of course vice versa, because there are people who are going to move from the NDC camp into the NNP camp. But there is a likelihood that every candidate will pick up a couple of disgruntled voters, or voters who probably just didn't like the NDC presentation during the 2018 election cycle, and are now energized by Deacon and energized by the youthfulness and the vibrancy of all of the 15 candidates.
Indeed. But when you compare the candidates, representing these two main political parties, because there are some other candidates. I think the GLP they've filled what four seats.
Yes.
We also have the Renaissance Party, I think 2. There is one independent, I think, in St. Patrick West. So there are other candidates. Whether they can make a serious impact, that is yet to be seen. But the two main parties, the NDC and the NNP, I think this is where the real contest lies, to determine which one of these will win the election. All right. There's also, so we've looked at 8 and for 12 seats, which the data seems to be slightly in favor of the NNP winning them. And let me say, folks, and I want to make that clear, people are quick to, talk about people being biased, and this is not anything about being biased. We're just looking at the data and what is before us, and no one is saying here that the NDC cannot win the election. They have done before on 2 occasions.
Yes,
in 2000 and Well, in 1990,
Yes.
they formed the government.
Yeah.
They got 7 seats and then someone crossed over.
Yeah.
And then they won again in 2008. So they have been in government before. So no one is disputing the fact whether or not they can. But, you know, based on the figures before us, we're just looking at it. Now, there's the St. David seat, very, very interesting. That I think all eyes are on. There's also the Carriacou, and then there is St. George Northeast.
Yes.
Let's look at them.
Yes.
And we'll be going to a break in a little while. But just before we do that, let's look at them. Let's start with the Carriacou seat, for example.
Yeah.
Now, NDC has won that seat before. On more than one occasion.
Yes, they have.
NDC has also, the NNP has also won that seat. Originally, it was a GNP stronghold from the days of the late Herbert Blaise. Then, of course, Mr. Nicholas Braffett representing the NDC as well. And then later on, Mrs. Joan Purcell from the NDC, she also won that seat. And then, of course, the late Elvin Nimrod, he was able to win that seat on more than one occasion as well. So the Carriacou seat is a very interesting one. Now, coming from the 2013 election, the NDC candidate has been able to narrow the margin.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
From about 600 to 170 votes.
Yeah.
No. Here is the thing, and we see how it's turning. In 2003, NDC, almost. It's like they had this in their hand, and it just fell off their hand.
It just fell off.
6 votes.
Fell off.
Now we're seeing the young Mr. Tevin Andrew doing very well. He was able to narrow that margin to just about 170 votes.
Yeah.
The word on the ground is that the NNP has been able to cover some grounds. It is believed that they were falling back in that seat, but in recent times they've been able to cover some grounds.
Okay.
All right. So 170 votes is not a lot of votes.
No, it's not.
You know?
It's not.
So it is winnable for the NDC. You know, but of course, you never know. NNP won that seat by 6 votes before.
Yes.
So, you know, it's very interesting. The word on the ground is that the gentleman, Tevin Andrew, is doing very well in Carriacou. And, you know, most people think that he has an excellent chance, a more than average chance of, you know, pulling that seat back to the NDC. As we speak, the leader of the NNP is in Carriacou in meetings now. You know, so I guess the NNP is trying to do everything they can to hold on to it. And I'm sure Tevin is doing all that he can to recoup or to clear that 170 votes and get at least one more to win the seat.
One more.
Now, I would let you give us your synopsis on the St. David seat, because this, I think, is where most people are looking.
St. David's. I think there is going to be a lot of heartbreak in St. David's. That's my prediction, because one of those 2 gentlemen are going to win, and they're not going to win by a whole lot. Oliver Joseph won the last 2 election cycles. But here comes Deacon Mitchell, the youthful, articulate, well-spoken leader. He has chosen to go back home, return home, as it were. And it has created a lot of buzz for the St. David's. Now remember, last election cycle, Persuader really did well. He was able to narrow the margin from the 2013 defeat.
In fact, he was able to cut it in half.
Yes, he was able, so really well. So Persuader had that momentum going. And I think maybe if he was given the opportunity, he would have really done really well. No, I'm not saying that Deacon won't do well. I'm saying he is going to do well, because I think the momentum from Persuader to now a more likable person, a new face, and then it's the leader of your party. So what we're seeing now is a lot of resources are being spent in St. David's, and the NNP is not going to fall behind in their quest to keep Oliver Joseph safely in the hands of the NNP.
Well, Dr. Pancho, I cannot, I don't know. I really don't know. What I can say, Mr. Oliver Joseph, he is starting in front. Because he is the person holding that seat presently. Mr. Dickon Mitchell has a number of things going for him. Yeah. The fact that he's been able to, really re-energize the NDC supporters. And there were a lot of despondent NDC supporters. Yeah. I mean, coming from 2 humiliating defeat, it's a difficult thing, But here comes Dickon Mitchell, as you said, re-energizing the party, and the man has, really done very well.
Yes.
Right? We've heard, some not so pleasant stories about the NNP candidate in St. David, along the lines of him losing some support.
Yeah.
However, there is something important that we need to pay attention to. Most supporters of the NNP tend to vote more in favor of their party and leader as compared to the candidate. So whether or not maybe some of the negatives will affect Mr. Joseph, I really don't know.
Yeah.
But Dickon Mitchell has about 382 votes that he needs to clear. And as we say, one more to defeat Oliver Joseph. We cannot deny the fact that Mr. Joseph, he is not a walkover in St. David.
No.
He has his support.
Yes.
When you go around St. David, NNP supporters, to me, and that's based on what I'm seeing, they are a lot more visible than the NDC supporters. Now, when it comes to the posters and the flags and all of that, NDC is there. Every corner you turn in St. David, you're seeing a poster with the face of Mr. Dickon Mitchell.
Yeah.
You have to give them that. Whether that can be converted into actual votes, this is what will make the difference for Mr. Mitchell in actually winning the seat. St. David is a very large constituency, and like some of the other seats, St. David is a constituency that is not a strange constituency to the NDC. The NDC has won that seat before with the late Michael Andrew. They've won that seat again with Mr. Dennis Lett.
Twice, right?
Twice, yes. Twice. If I'm not mistaken, I think Michael Andrew also won it twice.
Yes.
So it is not a strange seat to the NDC. And between 2013 and 2018, Persuader Thomas was able to narrow the margin from 700 and about 56 something votes to about 382 votes. So definitely, if that trend continues, there is a good possibility that Dickon Mitchell can win that seat.
Yes.
But it is going to be very interesting to see how that one turns out. So just before we go to the break, let us look at the final seat.
Yeah.
St. George Northeast.
St. George Northeast.
Your take on that. Two new candidates.
Yeah. Now I like Ron. Ron is a really great candidate. Any party would love to have Ron on the platform. But I think so is Nimrod. Nimrod is a very nice young man and hardworking young man, and has done a lot in terms of his career. So the history of that seat, Godfrey, is really interesting. NDC has won that seat several times. Really, within the last 5 election cycles, NDC has won that seat, several times. Starting with George Brizan, right? He won that seat. Nazim won that seat. But the last 2 election cycles, Toby came through for the NNP, and the last election in 2018 against the leader of the NDC at that time, Tobias was able to win that seat by 200 odd votes.
Actually, no. It was a mere 136
136,
votes.
okay.
In fact, on both occasions,
yes,
the margin was just a little over 100.
Okay.
Very, very, very close.
So this time around, yes, this time around, it is going to be very, very interesting. Ron and Nimrod, two young men, two vibrant young men, and they have themselves, they have their own record to establish. In other words, they have their own fame to establish in Northeast. This is one, Godfrey, that on Thursday night may be the last seat that is going to be called.
Well, if I recall clearly, in the last election, it was. Now, there's a very interesting comment by a gentleman that I just want to share with our viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
About St. George Northeast. Now, he says, with the 3-month delay in NDC selecting a caretaker after the election of the new executive in November last year, he says it will be difficult for Ron Redhead to defeat Nimrod Oliver.
Okay.
And his reason is because Oliver has been underground for over a year. And then he goes on to highlight the fact that that seat has been an NDC stronghold with George Brizan and so on and so forth. Yeah. It is also interesting to note that the occasions when NNP won those seats were years when NDC were going through serious problems.
Right, right.
So that's another very, very interesting one.
Yeah.
And we have to say that this one, it's a little difficult to.
Yeah.
I mean, 127 votes in fact, it was the narrowest of margins in
the last election.
In the last election.
Yes, it was. Yes.
In the last election cycle. In fact, the last two elections. Because I think in the previous election, the margin was a little more than 2018. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I don't know what the Nazim Burke factor how it would help the gentleman, because of course we heard after the two defeats, there were calls for Mr. Burke to step aside, and to make way. And of course, he's now assisting Ron Redhead with the campaign. So I'm sure he does have some support there. So let's see how that support can influence the Redhead campaign. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a commercial break now, and we will be back. So stay with us, folks. Don't go away. We will be opening the line very early as well. Yeah. So we'll be back with you in just a moment.
You under pressure, you under stress, a lot of problem, they on your chest. You under pressure, you under stress, a lot of problem, they on your chest. Release it.
The strong, the elite, Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it.
Introducing Color by Sissons. 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 Color by Sissons.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
The strong, the elite, Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it.
Welcome back, everyone. It's our final release it before election, and we're basically analyzing, what could or could not possibly happen, on June 23rd. We do have a little unpleasant news. We were supposed to have the PM on. Unfortunately, he had a meeting. He's in Carriacou, and he was supposed to join us via Zoom. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as if that may happen. He's pressed for time, but we're still keeping our fingers crossed, hoping that he may get through and be able to join us. But it's a little unfortunate. We are hoping to have him at the start, but that has not worked out very well for the time being. So hopefully we're keeping our fingers crossed and hope that he can join us maybe in the second half or a little later on in the program. But we will open our telephone lines. In fact, the telephone line is open because we want to hear from you tonight. We want to hear your thoughts on how you think this is going to play out. And chat with us, share with us your thoughts on how you think it's going to play out. So we'll have the number. It's on the screen already. The number is 440-1252. You can give us a call. I said the line is already open. Give us a call, and we'd like to hear from you your thoughts on how you think this election may go. All right. So, Dr. Already we have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Good night, Godfrey.
Yes, good evening. Welcome.
Good night to your panelists.
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Concerning the election, I think that the election will be based on national issues, because the majority of people that are home are listening, and I think it will be based on what was done by the government so far. I think you also look at the last election, the promises that was given. The oil and gas. Then you look at the pension was restored, which was not. And even the presently, the pension is still not restored. And you remember in 2018, the civil servant, the workers of this country match, their salary was docked. And up to now, they're still not getting a pension. Remember, these workers have a family. And waiting for their grandparents, parents, children who had such a bad Christmas that year. And these are the people that have to vote. So I think this time around, the voters will vote against the present government.
Okay.
Because
all right. Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. So the caller thinks the vote, and these are some of the issues, Dr. Panchu, that has come up. The pension issue has been around for a while. It has been a sore point, I must say, for the government. But you know, elections are funny. Elections are funny. You know, I have even here in Grenada, we have seen elections where many people think you would go one way and then it went in a different direction. We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Yes. Good night.
Yes. Good evening.
Yeah. Yes. Good night.
Yes. Go ahead. We're hearing you.
Godfrey. Generally, how I look at this election in Grenada now it depends on the policies of the two governments, of the two parties. Number one, you see, Grenadian people measure, look at the NDC as a vindictive party.
Caller, just before you continue, can you turn the volume of your device down a bit? We're getting a feedback.
Obstruction.
Yeah, you can listen to us on your telephone.
Can you turn the volume of your device down a bit? Right. Yes. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So Grenadians look at the NDC as a vindictive party with the aim coming to govern as a spiteful
Caller, are you there?
Yes.
Well, we hardly hearing you.
Right. So I believe it based up. Yes, I didn't know. You're right. Okay. So then I believe it depends on not so much of the candidate. The candidate plays a part, but I believe the whole situation based upon the policy of the party, led by Dr. Kit Mitchell himself. So the people vote, but basically of the policy of Kit Mitchell, and the candidate plays a part, but mainly the policies of Kit Mitchell really, and the people vote more along the party line. And I believe generally Grenadians become scary of the NDC because they feel if they take power, they're going to eradicate what sort of benefit that they're going to get. Because I believe, in my mind, the NDC paints a picture in the minds of the Grenadian public that if they get into office, that they will show them how to work, such as the Imani, the Warden, the old age pension people. They greatly play with such a sentiment. And once they think like that, they got to vote more along the NMP line. You won't get them to vote much on the NDC side. So you could go up, go down. NMP going to reap a harvest.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. You know, Dr. Pancho, There are a lot of comments on.
Yeah, very interesting
loads
comments.
of comments on the Facebook page. Most of them, people are basically just voicing their opinions.
Yeah.
And folks, listen, let me just say this. What we're doing here, we're looking at the data. We're not just saying what we feel. The data is before us. And the data is available, Those of you who want to check it out, you can just Google Grenada elections.
Yeah.
And you would get the results of every election that's been held in Grenada.
Yeah.
So, you can check it out yourself, look at the figures, and you may be able to make a better analysis of what is happening. No one here is deciding who will win or who will not win. We're just looking at the data. It's before us, it's online, it's available, so you can go check it out yourself. All right? I think we have another caller on the line. Yes, caller, good evening, welcome. Oh, well, we lost that one. Okay. But, Dr. Panchu, the campaign in itself, where we are now, 1 week before election, we're seeing a lot of things happening. We saw at the youth rallies, we had performances from Jamaican artists.
Yeah.
What was very interesting, there was an outcry when it was announced that one Jamaican artist was coming for one particular rally, and then lo and behold, in a couple of days, there was another Jamaican artist appearing at another rally. And it reminded me of a calypso by a guy called Hercules. But we have a caller on the line. Yeah. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Good night to both of you.
Good evening, sir.
I'm a little bit puzzled in relation to the data you all are depending on to suggest one way or the other. So let me tell you. So, for example, if a candidate won an election by 10 votes last time, are you telling me now that these 10 votes remain for that particular candidate? These 10 votes remain for the particular candidate? Aren't there variables in this whole thing? As a matter of fact, don't you think that some of these candidates will no longer vote for the particular, voters wouldn't necessarily vote again for the candidate? And I keep saying, this election, no matter how any of you there look at it, is not a walk in the park. This is a crucial, and this is the mother of all elections. Trust me with this. And I feel some of you speak there as if you all been doing some groundwork for the incumbent. Like you all been doing some groundwork for them, based on how some of you, your discourse. I am saying tonight, no one will be intimidated by that program tonight and make some people feel that NDC and no. NDC, in my mind, is going to give NNP a good run for the money. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Panchu, your comments?
Well, I don't know. Maybe this caller is just brand new to the program, because in the beginning and throughout the program, we're not saying, I don't think Godfrey has said, neither have I said, that this election cycle is going to be an easy one for the NNP. I think we have presented the data in terms of the last voting numbers. And when he asked the question about if a candidate won by 10 votes, can he or she expect to still have that 10 votes? There is a strong likelihood. Sorry if you know anything about statistics and probability. Maybe you don't know, so let me teach you tonight. There is a strong likelihood that this candidate can keep those 10 votes. Likewise, it is possible that the candidate can lose the 10 votes. But it doesn't mean, because it doesn't translate, that if a candidate loses or didn't get votes that they had last year, that the other candidate is going to get it. That's not what the data shows. Because last time we had 20,000 people who for one reason or the other, did not cast their ballot.
You know, this is very interesting, Dr. Pancho, that you said. You know, whether or not, if let's say, for example, a party, let's take it brother, whether they lose X amount of votes, whether these votes would go to another party, it doesn't mean it at all. Because in 2013, Let's go back to 2008.
Okay.
NDC got a total of some 29,007 votes.
Right. Very good.
In 2013,
that caller needs to listen to
they
this
lost.
point.
They lost 6,000, almost 900 votes.
They got less.
So they had moved from the 29,007 to about 22,000 plus.
Right.
In 2018,
yes,
both the NDC and the NNP, in fact, in 2018, the NDC got an additional 1,039 votes, and the NNP got about 1,700 votes.
Yes.
So neither parties really increased their votes in any significant way to make a difference in the outcome.
It's serious.
Which means, or which says to me, that the 6,000 plus votes that the NDC lost in 2013, these people did not vote.
They did not
because
vote.
the NNP votes did not increase.
By 6,000. It only increased by 1,700.
But then NDC increased by 1,000.
Right.
So clearly, these people did not vote. The majority did not vote, because had they voted, we'd have seen a significant increase either in the NDC votes or either in the NNP votes. And the other thing is, even if a candidate, let's say, loses 10 votes, and you know, based on what the caller said, all right, let's say he doesn't get back the 10 votes, but why do you think that the other candidate may not lose votes as well? You see, votes move from one way to the other. People leave the NNP and go to NDC. People leave the NDC and they go to NNP. You know, so in some ways, it balances off. Maybe in some instances more than other times. But, you know, just for the benefit of others, we are not here to call the results of the election. We are just basically looking at the numbers from previous elections and just talking based on that, you know. So, I mean, you know, callers, understand that. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening. Welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller.
Yeah, I'm calling from the South, and I just wanted to air my views based on what you guys are saying. So, in 2008, right, NDC won 11 seats, right? How much would you think they win now? That they are more organized and that they are more, you know, putting the issues out there. They're really more organized, and there's a whole different slip now than in 2008. I would also like to make the next point, right? The elections before, Dr. Mitchell was the advantage of the NNP party. And in this election, based on the word on the ground, he's not the advantage anymore, he's the disadvantage. So I don't see Oliver Joseph being able to win in the South, seeing that he cannot piggyback on Dr. Mitchell's popularity anymore. And the next thing is on the ground. I've been on the ground every day in the South. And in my personal view, I think it is almost impossible for Nolan Cox to beat Andy in the South. They can't get around that. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, caller. Well, this caller said he has been on the ground.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, absolutely. If you have that better feel for what is happening there, then that's your opinion. But let me say quickly, Godfrey, nobody knows how a person is going to vote until we count every ballot. That's a significant thing, you know. You know, people can wear the T-shirts, they can tell you yes, and when they get behind that curtain, they decide where they want to vote.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening, caller.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good evening.
Yes. Godfrey, it have a lot of people who really... Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, I heard you speaking on the program. And Godfrey, you have it right. You know, a lot of people are listening. They're right in front of the TV. And they still don't understand what people are trying to say. But then again, some people will like the conversation to fulfill their needs in the true sense, like who they support. Everything should go down according to who they support. But anyway, I live in the South, and I understand the caller now say that it is impossible for Cox to win the South. Now, when Nicholas Steele had run the last election for the South, he wasn't popular down there. I myself didn't like him. He didn't popular. But then Roberts is from the Fall Edge, and Roberts is a sportsman, and Roberts was a more popular man in the South, and he still ended up losing. He still ended up losing the South. So it's not only because you're born in the South. You know, most people in the South, for the amount of years are living in the South, they vote for a party and not a MP. You understand? And I guess as much this election, the people will do the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Dr. Pancho, we did say that the NDC has probably won that seat more times than the NNP.
Absolutely, we said that, and there is a likelihood that, you know, there are a couple seats that the NDC have won.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and
the South been one, St. David been one, St. George Northeast. I mean,
Northeast have been one. Yeah.
We said so. Yeah. Clearly, some people are not listening to, unless they probably joined us late.
Well, yeah, joined us late, and we call it selective mutism. In other words, you just hear what you want to hear.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
I like your topic tonight. Yeah, you're watching at the statistics, and I have to be in some agreement with you. Now, if you look at the statistics, as I have looked at it, I have two possibilities. That everything still, with all the outcry, still favors the NNP if they hold the base. All right? Because most people are just speaking and talking, but they're not looking at the statistical result of the last election. And the second thing you have to look at is the amount of people for each constituency that has registered from 2018 to now. And if you look from constituency to constituency, you'll see it's not much people in the various constituencies. The two largest constituencies where you have over 1,000 people registered is both the South and St. David. Right? All the others, Carrico is 565, St. Andrews Southwest 472, Southwest 583, Northeast 538, you know, St. Andrews Northwest 485, St. David's 1,536, Town of St. George 395, Northeast 833, St. George's Northeast, St. George's Northwest you have 41, St. George's Southeast 514, St. George's South you have 1,542, St. John's 592, St. Mark's 361, St. Patrick's East 357, and St. Patrick's West 354. Right? And if you are to look at the losses of the NDC, right, from the last election or the last day, right, you have to look at it.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. The number is 440-1252. You can definitely call and you can share your views. We'd like to hear from you. We're just basically analyzing what is happening, you know, based on, you know, the data. I'm looking at previous elections and trends, you know. So, you know, this is where it's at. I don't know if Dr. Pancho is. I am not on the ground campaigning or canvassing or talking to people about who they're voting for. Yeah. So I cannot make any you know, statements based on that. I only have the data in front of me, and this is what I am using, you know, to state what I am stating. I am not speaking in favor of any political party. I'm just looking at what is before us. Yeah. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening to everyone.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi.
Yeah, good evening to everyone.
Good evening to everyone.
Yeah.
Hi, we're hearing you.
Good evening to everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
We're hearing you.
What I want to know, if there is Yeah, what I want to know, if we have a phone call in heaven to tell, connected to heaven, connected to the NDC party to know if they will win, because every day they go in there. I want to know that.
Okay, thank you, caller. I don't know who is going to win. As it relates to the election, what I know is on election day, everyone is entitled to go to the polls and vote, and I encourage everyone to do that. Think about the whole situation. Think about your situation, the country, and this is the yardstick you should use to cast your vote. And that would help you to determine which political party you would like to cast your vote for in an effort to form the next government. No one can tell you who to vote for. Do we have another caller online? Yes. Good evening, caller.
Hello?
Yes, good evening, caller. We're hearing you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, good night. What I noticed, yes, what I have noticed in St. David, the NDC people are not coming out in rallies. You have more NNP people going out to their rallies than the NDC people. I don't know why they are doing that. I don't know if they are staying quietly, but they are not coming out in rallies at all. So when you look at St. David, based on the rallies, people are seeing clearly maybe NNP could win. And that is what is happening in St. David. For example, in Latans, when 5 buses leave in Latans for NNP rally, 1 bus leaving for NDC. So that is something people are watching in St. David to see how that election go turn out, because in all the village in St. David, you have more NNP going out in rallies than NDC. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Pancho, I don't know that, it is a good idea to base assumptions and outcomes of election, in the line of rallies.
On the rallies, yes. And there are two things. Yeah, absolutely. There is no predictability in the crowds that go out. But here are some facts. We can go with the facts. The NNP, the new National Party, has a larger base than does the NDC. Yes. That's a fact. In terms of people registered for either party, the NNP party has a larger base. Here is what there are so many comments, Godfrey, on the live, and people are accusing. That's not what I'm. But here is what I think Rhonda from St. David's is banking on, and a couple of the comments alluded to that, and that is the Deacon effect. They're calling it the Deacon effect. And maybe it is. Who knows? But what I'm saying, I think there is a resurgence of the NDC party. And that resurgence may translate in an increased base for them. It may translate in an increase in voter turnout. And if it does, then the election this time will be much closer than it has been in the last 2 cycles.
Definitely will.
Yes.
I think the last. Well, I don't know if the final list is published yet, but the last count I saw, it was about what, 87, a little over 87,000 registered voters. What we've seen in the past, the actual number of people who go out and vote is just under 60,000.
Yeah.
When that happens, no, of course, a lot depends on the distribution of the votes, because you have constituencies, for example, like St. George Northwest, St. Mark, and also St. Andrew Southeast, where the candidates who win, they win by large margins. So even if we have a large turnout, and depending on how people vote, on how these additional people vote, a lot would depend on how the votes are distributed, and that can determine, where the election goes. But you are right, as it relates to the support base. It is definitely clear that the NNP has a larger support base than the NDC, and so the NDC would definitely need, with the additional 9,500 people who are registered, the NDC will definitely need a significant percentage of that, and also if they can recoup that 6,000 plus votes that they lost in the 2013-2018 election, then they have an excellent chance of getting the victory. Now, if the NDC cannot do that, then it is not rocket science. The NNP will win.
Of course.
It will win. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Pleasant night to the panel.
Yes, good evening.
I've been listening to the program and it's very interested. I listened to the different numbers of the last election, and just imagine when the NDC was not really stable because they had problems, they got this amount of votes. Now that we have seen a most solid foundation in the NDC, I believe that they have a very good chance of winning the election. And what I noticed is that Mr. Deacon Mitchell, he's like, he come with a difference. He don't come in meetings or to speak anybody past or their business or whatever. He come with the points. What he's going to do for the country. He underlined the issues that we are facing, also the pension, the money that was supposed to be, the program was supposed to be just training, and after training, then you're there for 2 years and then you get a job. But it remains to be a permanent one. And I think the present government right now have nothing to really bring to the people, because all they had bring before is lie. The last election, they win by saying that we have oil. And up to now, we haven't seen oil. So I don't think they have anything to tell Grenadian anymore. And people right now is voting for change. We need to change. Kit Mitchell thinks that he owns Grenada, but Grenada belongs to all of us. And there is victimization, and this thing has to stop. So we need change, and change is coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Thank you very much indeed. People are expressing their feeling. And I guess sometimes, in police work, Pancho, you've never been a police officer, but you hear a lot that sometimes police officers they do things based on a little hunch that they get, a gut feeling. And I guess there are a lot of people out there who getting this gut feeling that change is coming, and they express it, and it is a good thing, to express how you feel, so I have absolutely no problem with that. Let me just say good night to, I don't know if it's Tana Phillip, who think that GBN is looking for ratings, and she thinks that this is nonsense on the air. And she also thinks that Dr. Pantry is an NNP and that I am biased. Tana Phillip, we love you very much. We love you very much. So keep the comments coming. I love to see when the comments are increasing. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yes, indeed. Also want to say good evening to Mr. Brian Grimes, the leader of the Public Workers Union. Yes, indeed. And we are not cutting people short. We just want to be able to get as much calls as possible, Mr. Grimes. So do have a good night yourself. Do we have another caller online? Caller, good evening.
Hey, good afternoon, sir. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon to the panel. From my area, I from Mongozo area. And what I see from Mongozo, sometimes we leave down 3 buses to go down to go everywhere MP rally is. And Windsor Forest area, I notice Windsor Forest area have a good turnout. So you get 5 buses from Windsor Forest area to go NP rally. And the NC rally, only 2 buses leave Windsor Forest to go NC rally. And I noticed Vincent's area have a good turnout. And come to NP rally, they have a good turnout. Everybody come out in national. Everybody coming out. I don't say I see NP come back in power again. I for Beaton and Laughing area. They always have a 2 buses to leave Laughing. All private vehicle, all young boys are going car. They move with their pre-private vehicle. And the PO election again, I can see that Oliver Joe Cocoba already sit in St. David. I see that already. I almost walk Oliver Joe to do for the green of St. David area. We want that tongue in St. David. I want that KFC place in St. David. Thank you very much. Mr. Oliver Joseph, good night to you. If you're listening, I is a pro NP man. I don't care what people say. I is a NP for my life. If you caught me, I get to see you green blow with me. I don't care. I am NP man for my life.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Well, I tell you what, as someone suggested, we should drink some water, Pancho.
Yes,
so
probably.
I tell you what, we'll take a short break.
Yeah.
We'll have some water, and then we'll be back with you in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back.
Yes. Okay.
Karen, may I?
They are the few, the strong, the elite. Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it.
Welcome back, everyone. Oh boy, we're really enjoying this. The comments are coming fast and furious. We're really happy, folks, and we encourage you to keep the comments coming. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
You know, it's important. You know, you'll be surprised to know what you can get from people on the ground. But we have a caller online. Good evening, caller.
Hey, good night, sir. How you doing?
Very good.
Yeah, boy. Right, when you come into the rally and so, right? NNP, a lot of people come out to vote to the NNP rally. But in this see a lot of people staying home. And they say when the time comes, they go and vote and do what they have to do. You know? So you have a lot of more people going to the rallies than NNP. But the NNP, a lot of people staying home. And they're relaxing and watching to see what happens. But to tell you the honest truth, where I see, we won't get the whole 15 seats for NNP. We have 50-50 chance, you know? Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. We were not able to, I was not able to hear the caller clearly at all. Caller, I'm sorry. I really wasn't able to hear you well. I'm not sure what went wrong there with your audio, but we do apologize for that. So yes, we continue.
Well, Godfrey, you know, one of the two of the callers from St. David's talk about when NNP from one village or one polling division is sending 5 or 6 buses, the NDC is mustering 1 or 2 buses. Somebody said, well, it's because a lot of the elderly support the NDC, and so they're not going to rallies. Well, that could be a truism, but also there is a saying, Godfrey, and if you're listening, take note: he who has more oil fries more bakes.
That's right. That's right. But, as we said earlier, you cannot, there's no way you can judge the outcome of an election based on rallies,
Watch this, Godfrey. I was not on island, but I was tuned in 2008. In 2008, if you remember, at National Stadium, when Dr. Mitchell came out as a pilot dressed up in his green outfit. There were more people at that rally in 2008 than any time there was, and NNP lost that election 11-4.
Yeah, and I mean that was a significant victory for the NDC.
Yes, it was.
Let me say it again, as we said in the beginning, no one is ruling out the NDC in this election. NDC has won the election before. The people have given them the mandate.
Yeah.
You see, it's not just about a party, but if a political party can convince the electorate that what they are offering is in their best interest, the people will vote for that party.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work that way, then people will not vote for them. I always hear people, say that, people want change, and they generalize. Yeah. And I always defer. And, I've had some arguments with my colleagues on that. Some people want change. There are people who are very satisfied with what is going on. You see, there are some people, in some cases, and listen to me well, folks, don't be quick to judge me and say I'm defending NNP as you all are saying. In some cases, right or wrong could be relative.
Yeah.
Because what might be right for someone may be wrong for someone else. So you see, when we generalize and we talk about the people want change, we have to be careful.
Yeah.
Some people may want change. Some people may not want change. Some people may be quite happy with the way things are going, and there could be a number of reasons for that.
Yeah.
So all of these things has to be taken into consideration before we jump and say, well, look, this is going to happen and that going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. We have a caller. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening.
How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Very good. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'd also like to agree with the point that you made a while ago that in 2008, the New National Party had one of the biggest crowds that I have seen. So we have been using the crowd to make a judgment on who is going to win the election. But of course, that cannot be done. I would also like to encourage the persons, because in walking on the ground and in canvassing and in speaking to individuals, I do realize that a lot of persons are expressing their dissatisfaction with the New National Party, but feel for some reason that they are obligated to vote for them or not to vote for them. So I want us to take this election, take a couple minutes to ourselves, sit and you ask yourself, am I okay with the way the country is running? Am I okay with the victimization? Am I okay with the limited or lack of development that is happening in the country? Am I okay with the limited employment industries? Coming in with a specialized degree in Grenada, your employment is very, very limited. Your employment options are very, very limited. And I ask the young persons, are you okay with that? The Imani is okay if it's a training, but when we're going to use it as a job, no, that's a whole other space. Persons that have disabilities, are you asking yourself, am I okay? The government is not putting things in place for interpretation of the news in the case of deaf individuals. All of these things, there's no psychologist in the hospital. I am just finding out, okay, I am diagnosed with cancer. There's no one in the hospital to say, I can go for counseling. Now, these are very, very critical points that eventually leads to either the building or the breaking down of the economy of the country. And this election, everybody needs to put party aside and make it very, very personal. It is very, very important. And we need to go out and exercise our franchise. As for me, we need a change. I hope on Thursday we see that change, but I wish both parties the very best. That's it from me. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. I need to appeal to my producer there. I seem to be having some issues hearing the callers. I don't know, maybe we need to just up the audio a little bit, but I'm not hearing the callers. The last two calls, they were not very clear at all. So, Mr. Producer, can you kindly just up the volume when the calls come in, because I'm not able to hear them well, and so it's difficult to comment on what the callers are saying, because I don't want to say anything that is not so. Right. Caller, good evening. Welcome.
Godfrey, good night.
Good evening.
Okay. In 2018, I campaigned in the Northeast, right, for Mr. Tobias. And it's the first time I've ever went out on the campaign trail. I went to places I've never known up that side in the Northeast. But I met a lot of people that knew me. And all the feedback I was getting, that we don't want to see Mr. Tobias. He turn up the window when he see us, and he don't say hello and thing. But we are going to vote the party, the NNP party. And I went out and I campaigned on the NNP party. I campaigned on that party and not Mr. Tobias. You understand? And a couple days, one day last week, some NDC people came to my home with a list with a lot of names on the list and asking me to help them about these people on the Northeast. I said to them, why did you come to me? Why a lot of houses in the area? Why did you come to me? I said, Randall Robinson lives just down the road of me. Why didn't you go there? He said, well, we know you and we know you campaigned the last time and we didn't see you going out this time. So as a good citizen, Godfrey, I took the list and I helped him. You understand? And when I'm finished, I said to him, my darling, I'm a staunch supporter of the NNP. I don't run from party to party. I support a party over 20-something years, and somebody new come in another party, and I going to leave that and jump in the other thing. It's like when you have your husband, you see a next man on the road you like, you leave your husband and you go behind that man because he look good? No way, darling. Women, the NNP has a solid followers of women, and when you see women do something, it's because they know what they're doing and they are solid. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed.
Godfrey, this caller has horned in on a very significant piece of the election puzzle for Grenadians and for both parties, and that is, when you look at the history of the NNP and the voters, they vote party. The supporters of the NNP, they have a history of voting for party. So when it swings for everyone.
Indeed. Dr. Panchu, when you look at this election, and I've asked the question before, and I know when I ask it again, I'm going to get a lot of licks about being biased.
Yeah.
But could it possibly be, and we're hearing, of course, there is no denying that the presence of the NDC is felt in Grenada. it is felt in Grenada and outside as well. You see when you go to social media, you see a lot of the posts, and a lot of these posts, they are from the diaspora. But the question I usually ask to try to make sense of all of that is whether the noise that we are hearing, could it be the re-energized supporters of the NDC, or is it the noise of the general population? Can you help me out here?
Yeah. But that's a very good. I don't know that I have the answer to that question. I think it's a very interesting and intriguing piece for us to try to unravel. Women and their support for NNP is a strong variable in this election. No one should underestimate the power of the dedicated NNP woman. No, I can say that to the NDC also. But I think the history backs what this caller is saying, that if you look at the rallies, if you look at the constituency level among the NNP supporters, women are strong and they are dedicated to the party of the NNP.
Right. We have a caller online. Caller, good evening.
Yes, good evening. I'm Godfrey.
Yes.
If the campaigners do influence the voters that didn't vote in the last election, if they don't encourage them to vote, to me, the result going to be the same thing. The reason I say this is that when NNP have the rally, let's say in Pulse, NDC have their rally in Guelph. Now they took their people and they go with them. Now the proposal that they have, the plan that they have for the country is always the NNP saying one thing all the time. The NDC saying this. Nobody is listening on both sides to make the decision to vote. So I believe the same result would be there. The people have to be let loose to make a decision by listening the proposal of both parties. Now, to me, who is responsible for this campaign? Is there an organization to regulate it? In other words, you have the WHO take care of health. You have the ICC take care of cricket. You have the football people. That organization is to take care to see the smooth running of this organization. Now, is there anything concerning the campaign to regulate the whole thing, or people just do as they want? To me, the result will be the same thing, because we're taking our people and go with them. Now, if we don't get the voters or the people that didn't vote the first time, if we don't get them to come in now and vote, I think the result is going to be the very same thing as the last election.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. The caller does have a good point, and we made the point earlier when we spoke about the additional number of registered voters, the 9,500. Of course, the NDC, in order to get the victory, they would have to get a significant percentage of that, and also be able to win back the 6,000 plus voters that they lost in 2013 and 2018. Other than that, it would mean that there must be a seismic shift in the support for the NNP moving towards the NDC. So if that doesn't happen, it will be very difficult. It will be very difficult, for the NDC.
Absolutely. And that's why you see the supporters of the NDC, they're saying the Deacon effect is going to sweep like a tsunami. Maybe it will. And all of the NDC supporters who think it's time for NDC to win at least a couple seats or maybe an election, maybe they'll get their wish. So here is an opportunity to prove, Godfrey, next Thursday, the results are going to be in. Nobody is going to have any influence over the results. It is going to be what the people did when they went behind the curtain. And we are going to get to tabulate them and add them up and give the results as they come in. But if there is a tsunami effect from Deacon, then NDC does stand a chance. But let me say this here. Overall, the NDC must amass or gain over 15,000 votes over the NNP for them to win. And that's the reality and that's the fact.
Because they have to cover the difference.
They have to cover the difference and get some more.
You see, folks, you also have to realize that, you know, people are talking about the 20,000 that did not vote. There is no way we would know that whether the entire 20,000 or what percentage of the 20,000, you know, if they vote this time around, would vote NDC or vote NNP. I mean, people change. You just don't know. There is a strong feeling that a higher percentage of the people who are not voting you know, will vote for the NDC. The reasoning is, the reason why they have not voted is probably because, one, they don't like the NNP, and probably they're not satisfied that the NDC has proven themselves yet to be a viable alternative. So, if we have a higher percentage of that new registered voters voting in the direction of the NDC, and you know, NDC has been able to accumulate some additional votes that they lost, then NDC can definitely win the election. No one is ruling the NDC out. They've won before, and I keep saying that. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Hello. Well, we seem to have lost that caller. So yes, you know, and I just want folks, you know, not just, I mean, I could understand, yes, you support a party, you love your party, you want your party to win, but you know, sometimes to avoid the heartbreak of that the results could cause, and I'm speaking here on either side. You know, it's good to analyze the thing well and make a fair assessment of what could possibly happen. Because, as Dr. Pancho said, until people go into that booth on polling day and cast that vote, we just don't know what will happen. Caller, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Dr. Pancho. Dr. Pancho, I'd like to know, how did you come up with the 15,000 figure?
Well, it's easy to look at the figure. The figures are based upon the figures from the last two election cycles.
Yeah, but just a little detail. How did you calculate?
NNP got 33,000 votes. NDC got 22,000.
Right.
So that's a deficit of 10,000 plus votes.
But remember, we're talking about seats, right? We're not talking about proportional representation.
No, we know about the first past the post.
Right.
But so what we did was we added all the deficits.
But you added it for all 15 seats, correct?
Yeah, we added for all 15 seats.
But are you supposed to do that? Because you can win with 8 seats.
Yes, you can, but there are 15 seats.
I think you're a little off on the numbers because you're considering all 15.
Well, absolutely. Watch me. You're right. I am off by numbers. So are you, because remember, this is only speculation and projection.
I didn't give a number.
No, but you have a number in mind, because you see, if you could say mine is off, that means you have one in mind.
Because what I figured you did was count all 15 seats, but I think to win you just need 8 seats. So that's my...
Absolutely. Right. In fact, you're right. In fact, with 8 seats, any one party winning 8 seats would have a majority.
Right, so that brings down the number from 1,500.
Yes, so it doesn't have to be 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And Dr. Patrick, it also depends on the distribution of the votes across the constituency.
Yeah.
Because we have constituencies that we've seen some very small margins. And then, of course, the others like the St. George Northwest and so that has, huge margins. So the distribution of the votes is a significant factor in that as well.
Yeah.
We have another caller online? Oh, okay. But yes, 8-7, it happened in 2003 when the NNP won the election 8-7. 6 votes, we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
The Carriacou seat actually made the difference. I also remember in 2003, the St. Patrick Northwest seat, the margin there was just about 42 votes, I think. That was with Joe Gilbert and somebody else.
West, yeah, St. Patrick West.
Yeah. So there's been some very narrow margins. So distribution is a key factor as well. Yeah. Caller, good evening.
Yes, good afternoon. How
Yes,
are you
sir.
all? Nice, wonderful program. I want Mr. Pancho to address, because I have facts about what I'm going to say, about the voters partying in the Northeast, that is with 2 hours claiming run, and I could give numbers with the voters partying issue, and where the girl from Pearls, with the voter party in that area as well. Because I'm aware and I have information we have voter partying. So how do you look at it? When you look at the numbers, there is voters partying, which the NDC government has taken that into the supervising election, and nothing has been done about it in the last election. So there is voters partying taking place. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Well, he sort of addressed the question to me, but that's way above my pay grade, sir. I have nothing. I am not affiliated to the office, the parliamentary office, for registration. But recently, the supervisor of election addressed the concerns of the NDC and the complaints regarding voter padding, and I don't know specifically what were the results, but the caller said that he does have. So if he has evidence, then he should take it to the appropriate authorities so that they can look into it. I mean, it's only 6 days before election. I don't know.
No, but definitely once there's evidence, of any inconsistencies or voter padding, however you want to call it, people can definitely and look. I think NDC is in the best position to address this. Their leader is a well-known attorney, so I think NDC is in a good position to address any issue of voter padding in any constituency once they have the evidence. By all means, I would definitely support them going to take up the matter and deal with it.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the telephone. Caller, good evening.
Hey, good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Yes, how are you?
All right, I'm good. I'm just calling to put some clarity to some of the misconceptions that's out there in relation to the numbers of that is needed for the NDC to win. Do you guys know that it is possible for the NDC to receive less individual votes and still command the government?
Yes, and we have said that already. In fact, Godfrey, remember when in 2008, when the NDC won 11-4, almost two times, 3 times the number of seats, NNP, in terms of aggregate votes, they lost by just a couple thousand votes.
1,800 actually.
Yes, yeah. So it was like 1,800 votes, and they lost by 7 seats. Okay, because they were coming from 15-0.
Yeah.
Right. So it is possible, caller, for the NDC to receive less aggregate votes and still win the election.
All right, thank you, caller. You see, based on our system, it's highly possible, highly possible, because we deal with seats. You know, so also the size of the constituency in terms of numbers can definitely determine that. You know, so definitely this is and that's why the distribution of votes is so critical. You know, in all of that. Yes, indeed. Do we have another caller online? Because we actually time has really, you know, gone. We're getting close to wrap up time. We have another caller. Caller, good evening.
Pleasant good night, gentlemen. How are you all doing?
Thank you very much.
With the, some people calling for change, but with the situation out in the world today, remember, today and before is different. So I don't know at the end, if you win, how we're going to handle it. Because things in the world is not the same. A lot of promises. So we got to be very, very careful with the change we want.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Dr. Pancho, maybe we can just go back a bit, you know, and just look back, because we're getting close to wrap up time. You know, we spoke earlier, and I made reference to, you know, the data, and in fact there was a gentleman who wrote an excellent article, you know, analyzing the election cycles. In fact, he went back as far as 1984. You know, and looked at the figures and concluded a number of things. And this is, we had used that and made reference. But just to go back on it, so people can you know, people who missed it. He's saying, the writer is saying that the NNP should win 8 sure seats. Now those are not our words. Right. All right, those are not our words. And his reasoning is all of these 8 seats that the writer is making reference to were won by over 600 votes in 2018. So he's basing his analysis on the numbers from the 2018 election, and he made reference to the 8 seats being St. Andrews Northeast, NNP won by 626 votes, and St. George Southeast by 673, St. John by 769, the South by 857, the Tongue of St. George 826, and Mark 1029, St. Andrews Southeast by 1158, and St. George Northwest by 2139. And so the writer is saying, based on these numbers, the NDC should win. Now, of course, if people are really disgruntled, and as some people feel, you know, the general population is calling for change, then NDC can definitely get that. NDC can definitely get that. The writer is also saying that there has to be a national seismic shift for the following 4 seats to fall in the hands of the NDC. And he's saying that these seats are St. Patrick's East, St. Patrick's West, St. Andrews Southwest, and St. Andrews Northwest. And the difference there was 382 in St. Patrick East, 448 in St. Patrick West, 449 in St. Andrews Southwest, and 496 in St. Andrews South Northwest. All right. So he's saying that there must be a significant shift then, so to speak, you know, from the NNP in order for the NDC to win these seats. All right. So based on what the writer is saying here, with the 8 seats that he believes should be, and mind you, he did not say that they are show seats. The writer is saying that they should win these 8 seats. They should, and that is based on the numbers. And the other 4, if there isn't a significant shift in the votes, then the NNP will also recapture those seats. All right? So that is putting them in a position of 12 seats based on the numbers. Now, the other 3 seats that the writer is making reference to, first one being Carriacou and Petite Martinique, where the difference was 170 votes. We know that Tevin Andrew has been able to significantly reduce that margin from 600 to 170. That's a significant narrowing of the margin. And he believes that if that trend continues, then definitely Carriacou could fall in the hands of the NDC.
Yeah.
He also goes on to speak about St. George Northeast, where the difference was 127 votes. His analysis was that the fact that the NDC, they had a 3-month delay in actually getting a caretaker for that constituency, which we now know is Mr. Ron Redhead, compared to Mr. Nimrod Oliver, who he says has been on the ground for over a year.
Yeah.
He believes it is difficult for the NDC to win that seat. However, he goes on to say that that particular seat, the St. George Northeast, has been an NDC stronghold. George Bizan won that seat before. Nazim Burke won the seat before. So it's a seat that NDC can definitely win. So he believes it may be difficult, but definitely not impossible for the NDC to win that seat. And the final seat, the one that everybody is looking at, the St. David's seat.
Yeah.
The 387 votes difference, and we did indicate that from 2013, Adrian Thomas Persuader was able to narrow that margin, in fact cut it in half.
Yeah.
And so the margin now is 387 that the political leader of the NDC now have to be able to cover. And of course, we have to also agree that the leadership factor will also come into play.
Yeah.
So that also puts him in a very good position. All right? So being in that good position, one, being the leader of the NDC, secondly, the St. David constituency also being an NDC stronghold in the past. Michelangelo winning that seat twice, the late Dennis Lett winning that seat twice as well.
Yeah.
It is definitely not an impossibility, and the NDC can also win that seat. So if based on the data of the writer, if that holds, not our prediction, the writer's prediction, it is looking like a possibility 12-3 in favor of the NNP.
Yeah.
And folks, please don't crucify us. Those are not our words.
Yeah.
Those are not our words. I know maybe some yellow smoke is fuming from the nostrils of the NDC supporters, but those are not our predictions. Those are not our predictions. All right. Yeah. We have a final caller on the line. Caller, good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening, caller. Hello? Caller, are you there? Well, okay, so we seem to have lost that caller. Dr. Pancho, we're practically out of time.
Yeah.
We've come to the end of it. Your closing analysis of this whole, discussion and what you're seeing happening on the ground now as we get ready for Thursday next week.
Well, we want to apologize for we promised to have, and we were hoping to have Dr. Mitchell via Zoom. That didn't happen. I'm going to save my prediction for next Thursday. So when I join live, I'll give my prediction. But I think I join with everyone, Godfrey, to state that this election cycle is an important one. Everywhere you go, every election cycle, we all say it's probably the most important one. But this one is important and it's significant. I like to see the resurgence of the NDC as a party. New leadership, a brand new slate. People say inexperienced, but they are youthful, energetic people, I believe, who love Grenada and who want to see Grenada succeed. And if every politician would make this a mantra to when he or she offers himself or herself for public office, their goal is to do the best that they can for their constituency and Grenada on a whole. And so I encourage everyone who's registered, and Godfrey, I think we have 87,000 people?
Yes.
Of course, there are people who are in the diaspora and may not be able to come to vote. and there's some, for religious purposes, may not want to vote. But as many of the 87,000 people out there, let us come out all next Thursday and give a vote for Grenada.
Thank you, Dr. Pancho. Of course, I want to encourage everyone to go out and vote. Remember, folks, that the folks before us, our forefathers, they fought hard for that right.
Yeah.
You know, blood was shed, people died for that right to vote. And I want to encourage everyone to go out on June 23rd and cast your vote. Think about what you would like to see happen in our country. Think about yourself, your personal development of the country. You know, where we want to be 10, 20 years from now as a nation.
Yeah.
You know, think it over carefully. Look at the options that are before you. And when you analyze it and you feel satisfied within yourself, cast your vote for the party that you think will do the best job in taking Grenada forward. In closing, I want to echo the sentiment of two of our Facebook fans. Let me just get it right here. Our good friend Tana Phillip is saying NDC will be victorious, and Marva Moore is saying house. Thank you very much, folks. Do have a good night, and don't forget to vote.
You under pressure.